I was gonna wait do this in the morning, but I can actually go ahead and do this now. Um, I have two things that I'm coming at y'all with. I'm gonna be coming at y'all with an update on the ice powing in Dallas, and I also have some information about former FBI Director James Comey indicted on two counts. With that being said, let's get to this first. And shout out to NBC News.
This is an NBC News special report. Here's Tom Yamas.
And good evening. We are coming on the air with breaking news right now. Former FBI Director James Comey has just been indicted on two counts, according to a senior Justice Department official. It comes after NBC News learned this week that the DOJ was weighing whether to charge Comey over allegations that he lied to Congress. Tonight, we understand the two counts are false statements and obstruction. This would be the first time a former director of the FBI has ever been indicted in the history of our country. I want to bring in NBC News senior legal correspondent Laura Jarrett. Laura, a lot happening in the last few minutes. Let's get our viewers up to speed here. Do we have an understanding of what this entitled and what this included? Testimony to Congress.
Yes, our best understanding of what this actually is, Tom, is that Comey was asked by Senator Cruz about whether he had ever authorized a leak to the media. He said that he had not. He was stemming back to some testimony that he had given years prior. He wanted to make sure he stood by that testimony. He said that he did at the
This
time.
guy
He's
Donald
always
Trump
denied
ran all
wrongdoing,
over it.
ever denied leaking to the press. And so we believe that's what this would be about. Again, that happened in September of 2020. And so you wonder, why bring those charges now? They have a 5-year statute of limitations that would run
This
out
right here
this
got
Tuesday. And
Trump
so we believe that all
and
of sort
Pam
of
Bundy
focus around
ran
this
all
right now
over
is
it.
happening because prosecutors want to make sure they are within that window. And the actual Attorney General herself, Pam Bundy, who has come under increasing pressure from this president about going after his perceived enemies, made it official tonight, even though we have not seen an indictment, saying no one is above the law and that this indictment reflects the department's commitment to holding those who abuse positions of power accountable for misleading the American people. We have reached out to Comey. We have not yet received a statement from his attorney or anyone representing him on his behalf. But I should again say that he has always denied that he has never engaged in any leaks and never had engaged in any misconduct.
And we want to be very upfront with our viewers. A lot of this information has happened in just the last 5 minutes. A lot of this is coming out on X, along with our reporting and confirmation with our sources. From our understanding, the interaction, and he was asked by Senator Ted Cruz during that hearing in Congress whether he had leaked or he had been a source or he had authorized a source. Yes. Multiple times, James Comey says no. But his deputy, Andrew McCabe, sort of didn't agree with him and said he had been authorized.
And that's what makes this entire circumstance so unusual, because McCabe is obviously somebody that has also come under a fair amount of criticism and attention from this president. So if the only source of information that James Comey is lying is Andrew McCabe, that would be an extraordinary moment to have McCabe be on the witness stand saying something that the president would obviously wish was true. Again, whether or not this goes to a jury is a different question than whether you get a grand jury to indict. We should make it clear to our audience, we have not seen an indictment. The standard for what can get a grand jury to indict is much different than reasonable doubt, which wouldn't a regular trial. The grand jury process is secretive. Not even the defense attorneys in the room. It's a process entirely controlled by the prosecutors. What evidence they put forward, what evidence they don't put forward, all in their discretion.
I want to bring in NBC News Chief Justice and National Affairs correspondent Kelly O'Donnell, because Kelly, as we know, there's a second part to this, right? Walk our viewers through what's happened in the Eastern District of Virginia over the past couple of weeks and why that's so important to this case.
Well, Tom, there has been turmoil, there has been disagreement, and there has been the hand of the White House, with the president choosing one of his own former personal attorneys, Lindsay Halligan, a woman who has experience in insurance law but has never prosecuted any cases. She had been working in the White House as well, placing her in a key position of power as the U.S. attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia. That comes after a sudden resignation that happened just a few days ago, where a long-time attorney who had a lot of experience in this area stepped down from his position. The president said he was fired, and there is apparently dispute over this kind of case and perhaps others where he did not believe there was sufficient evidence to pursue an indictment against Comey. And that's the kind of work that you would typically see of prosecutors who are career and even some that are appointed. If they have disagreements about the likelihood of getting a conviction, evidence sufficient to support an indictment. And all of those decisions, sometimes there are disagreements. And it is our understanding there was a memo that outlined why that was not, in his judgment, the correct course of action. He then leaves that position. The president says he wants the urgent help of one of his friends and someone who had represented him in some of the legal matters that he's been dealing with. She's now in that position and would have the responsibility to try to bring this through her staff and the team there, bring that forward to consideration of a grand jury seated in Virginia. And again, we don't know what happened behind closed doors. We don't know specifically what evidence was presented, but now an indictment.
I don't care how y'all see it or don't see it. This here at best ain't nothing more than a political hit job.
Indictment with these 2 counts has apparently been returned. Part of what you also see is a lot of public discussion from top officials in this administration about their commitment to going after perceived political enemies of the president, those in past administrations that they argue are corrupt. And there is a jury pool out there that will ultimately have to be considered. And so one of the balances that this administration will want to strike, but not always in an obvious way, is to be careful about what happens with the jury pool. So the president has put in one of his choices. Clearly, she has been able to take action. And again, we have to remember that citizens who review this evidence were willing to bring forward an indictment. That's a long way from actually getting it to trial and potential for conviction, and much could happen between now and then.
All right, Kelly.
What a remarkable series of events.
That is true, Kelly. I want you to stand by for us. If you're just tuning in right now, we are following some breaking news right now. Former FBI Director James Comey has just been indicted on 2 counts. I want to put up for our viewers now quite the statement that's just been put out by the FBI Director, Kash Patel. Let's put it up for our viewers. Here's what he writes. Today, your FBI took another step in its promise of full accountability. For far too long, previous corrupt leadership and their enablers weaponized federal law enforcement, damaging once proud institutions and severely eroding public trust. Every day we continue to fight to earn that trust back, and under my leadership, this FBI will confront the problem head on. Nowhere was the politicization of law enforcement more blatant than during the Russiagate hoax, a disgraceful chapter in history. We'll continue to investigate and expose everyone, especially those in positions of power, will be held to account no matter this perch. No one is above the law. So I want to ask you, Laura, after we see that statement from Kash Patel here, I mean, there might be people within the administration who may or may not want scores to be settled, but that's not the way the Justice Department works. They will have to follow the evidence, and there will be trials, and there will be evidence looked at.
There will be a jury. There will be a judge. Those are the gatekeepers in our criminal justice system. Also, we should mention Justice Department attorneys have an obligation, an ethical obligation, not to bring charges that they don't think are justified, that they don't think are backed by evidence, Tom. And the Justice Department manual actually says if you don't think that you can prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt, right? If you don't think you actually have the evidence to marshal that, you are not supposed to bring that prosecution. And so it'll be interesting to see, once we actually see the physical indictment, the piece of paper, who signs that indictment? Yeah. Is that signed by his former personal defense attorney, Lindsey Halligan? Is it signed by the Attorney General? We've seen cases before where they went down the line trying to find a prosecutor who would sign on to this. And it's one of the things I'm going to be looking for to see who actually signs this.
We're going to go to Gabe Gutierrez in a second, but I do want to ask you, there is that famous quote, you can indict a ham sandwich. So there could be a very good chance here that this moves from the process where it is right now.
Yeah, and absolutely. Again, the standard is different, right? All you need is probable cause that a crime has been committed, a reasonable likelihood. Whereas the standard in a criminal case to get a jury to convict is beyond a reasonable doubt. It's a higher standard of proof. And the jury has to be convinced that there was an actual crime committed. So we'll see more details, obviously, in the indictment about what they have.
Let's go to Gabe Gutierrez. He's live for us tonight outside the White House. Gabe, the president asked about this today. What did he say?
Yeah, that's right, Tom. And look, we've been asking the White House for reaction since news of this indictment came down. They're referring all questions to the Department of Justice, but they are also referring us to those statements, those comments that the president made just a short time ago in the Oval Office. Let's listen.
They're going to make a determination. I'm not making that determination. I think I'd be allowed to get involved if I want, but I don't really choose to do so. I can only say that Comey's a bad person. He's a sick person. I think he's a sick guy, actually. They did terrible things at the FBI. And,
Blah, blah, blah.
I don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen.
Constant
So the president
whining.
was asked about that earlier today in the Oval Office when he met with Turkey's president. Just 2 hours ago, he was asked once again. He said he couldn't comment. And Tom, in the Oval Office about 2 hours ago was the Attorney General, Pam Bondi. She, at the time, said she could not comment. So it speaks to the fast-moving developments here that this just unfolded over the last several hours. And, of course, this comes with this long history between James Comey and Donald Trump. And, look, he was a controversial figure, Tom, not just for Republicans, but also for Democrats. He reopened that email investigation for Hillary Clinton back before the 2016 presidential election, only to clear her days later. But this is something that we've been hearing of the administration, that they feel that this is not political retribution, Tom. I asked Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt earlier this week about that idea that critics say that the president wants to go after his enemies. She is trying to frame this as not about retribution, but rather accountability.
Yeah, but Gabe, you don't even have to go back to the first term. You can go back to just, I think, last week with that post from the president about Pam Bondi and putting pressure on her to go after his political enemies, correct?
Certainly. Look, it was a very interesting dynamic. The president posting on social media over the weekend that he seemed to be frustrated with the pace of the Justice Department going after several investigations, including not just James Comey, but also the New York Attorney General, Democrat Letitia James, and also Senator Adam Schiff. The president seeming to be frustrated with the pace of those investigations, and yet, just a day or two later, he came out and threw his support behind Pam Bondi. So it appears that over the last several days, there has been increase of the tempo here to try and get to this indictment, especially, as you mentioned, with the statute of limitations running out next week, Tom.
All right, Gabe Gutierrez first. Laura, I want to come back to you. You know, there will be people who are watching this who will think if James Comey did something wrong, he's being indicted, he will be tried, he will get his day in court. If that stuff comes out, then he should be punished. But that process will play out. What's next for James Comey?
Yeah, that process will play out. He will get a defense attorney, and likely a very good one, given his past and what he can afford, whereas he did not have a defense attorney giving his side to that grand jury. As I've mentioned, it's a secretive process. It's done by prosecutors. Now his defense attorney will get all the discovery. Whatever went in front of that grand jury, his defense attorneys will be entitled to. They will file motions in front of the judge trying to get the case tossed out. Likely the first motion, Tom, that's going to be in front of that judge is that this is a political prosecution.
Yep.
And he's going to marshal all of the tweets, all
Yep.
of the posts, all of the public statements
Only
made by
thing you
everyone
gotta
in
say
this
is
administration
political
likely
hit
to go
job.
into that motion before a judge to say this should be tossed out before it even gets to a jury for trial.
I think we're getting some statements or comments from the Department of Justice. I want to go back to Kelly O'Donnell. Kelly, what can you tell our viewers?
Well, they've put it in press release form, and it is very Trumpian in the sense that it includes not only the official discussion of the charges, but also sort of reflecting the tweets that we've just seen. What it goes on to tell us is that the indictment alleges that Comey obstructed a congressional investigation into disclosure of sensitive information, and that it also says that he made a false statement in violation of the U.S. Code, and that in that he did not authorize someone at the FBI to be an anonymous source. And that's according to the indictment, that statement was false. And then it repeats what we have seen from tweets with the posts on social media from Pam Bondi and so forth. And then very tellingly, it says at the end, an indictment is merely an allegation. All defendants are presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. So what they've done here is they've combined the very modern moment of social media posts into a statement and then given us a little insight into the specific counts. It gives you the code in the U.S. Penal Code as well. I won't bother with that. But obstruction of the congressional inquiry, false statements. Effectively, in common speak, he was asked by Senator Cruz if he had authorized someone at the FBI to leak to the media. Comey, who again was FBI director at the time these events occurred, said he did not. He said he stood by his testimony that he did not. They presented evidence to a grand jury, and they found otherwise. Obstruction of that inquiry and false statements. Testifying before Congress is always with the penalty of false statement. Certainly, these are counts where it also really requires an understanding of what was in the mind of the person. When you're talking false statements. Is there an intent to give knowingly false information? All of those things will be a part of what will likely be a long and challenging process of next steps. We, of course, await to hear what Mr. Comey, who himself, of course, is an attorney, was a high-level official at the Department of Justice, as well as being FBI director. He was the head of one of the most prominent offices, the Southern District of New York, and, of course, had direct interactions with President Trump early in Trump 1, the 45th presidency. And you remember the loyalty test question that Comey testified about, that President Trump then had asked for his loyalty. Comey talked about loyalty to the Constitution, not to one person. Been a lot of miles since then, Tom, but this is a remarkable set of events.
Yeah, and it was one of the first exits in that first administration with Jeff Sessions, then the Attorney General, who recused himself from the Russia probe, and that led to his ousting. Laura, I do want to ask you, some people at home may be watching this and asking, is there anything legal or illegal with the actual leak if he is investigated for that as well? Because we're talking about talking to Congress, it's obstruction, it's lying to Congress, but what about the actual leak?
It depends on what it is. It depends on if it was classified information. The director has the ability to authorize interactions with the media in a way that other lower level employees at the FBI does not have that type of discretion. But we should help people understand this is a far cry from what the president has accused James Comey of. If in fact he's being indicted for these two counts, they're serious, they're federal charges, but this is not sort of the widespread corruption that the president has accused Comey and other members of the FBI for. And so it'll be interesting to see whether this actually pacifies the president's demands or whether the president believes actually more should even be done here.
How fast does it move from now? And we only have a few seconds left here.
It'll be completely up to the judge to whether go fast on this and whether the judge agrees that it should be dismissed, which I imagine Comey will be moving for quite quickly.
Okay, a lot happening here. Laura and Kelly, we appreciate all your reporting. Again, if you were watching, former FBI Director James Comey has just been indicted. We're going to continue to follow this story. That concludes this NBC News special report. We're going to have much more ahead on our streaming network, NBC News Now, online always at NBCnews.com. I'm Tom Yamas here in New York. We now are going to return to our regular programming. We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.
Okay, and that's the end of that, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go to the Dallas update, courtesy of ABC News.
Travis Pickard, Special Agent in charge of HSI Dallas, and Benny Mims, Special Agent in charge of ATF Dallas. At the back, I will be putting a sign-in sheet for all media, so please, before you leave, add your information so that we have that. And following the remarks, we will have a brief period for questions and answers. Please remember to identify yourself and your media affiliation when you ask a question. And with that, I'll turn it over to Acting U.S. Attorney Nancy Larson.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here today. This is the third time in my short 4-month tenure as the acting United States Attorney for this district where we have suffered violent attacks and threats at ICE facilities. First, you'll recall July 4th, 2024, the violent attack on the Prairieland facility in Alvarado, Texas. The second occurred on August 25th, 2024, when Bratton Dean Wilkinson, who stands charged by federal complaint, pretended to have a bomb. He showed up at the ICE facility with a backpack and something that looked like a detonator on his wrist and threatened the facility. Third, of course, is yesterday's attack, September 24th, 2025, when the Dallas ICE facility was riddled with gunfire, costing the life of one detainee and injuring 2 other detainees critically. Initially, I want to commend the cooperation of the Dallas Police Department, the Dallas County Sheriff's Office, the FBI, the ATF, ICE, and HSI for their swift and decisive response to this crime. Members of these agencies quickly secured the scene and the evidence and worked tirelessly to determine any continuing threat. Due to their efforts, it did not take long to ascertain the identity of the shooter, who was deceased by a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and that he very likely acted alone. His name is Joshua Yan, 29, of Fairview, Texas. Let me just review a very brief summary of the timeline of yesterday's attack. We believe at some point around 3 o'clock in the morning that the suspect was seen driving on footage with a large ladder on his car. And we believe that that is what he used to position himself on top of the building. The shooting itself started at approximately 6:30 a.m. After the shooting started, Dallas Police Department arrived en masse, secured the scene. Law enforcement officers found the sniper dead. They found bullets on the rooftop, one of which was labeled with the words anti-ICE. That morning, gunshots sprayed the length of the building, the windows, and law enforcement vans that were in the Sallyport area. Detainees were struck by these bullets. One was killed, 2 were wounded, and both of them are undergoing treatment. Shortly thereafter, the FBI began its meticulous work at the crime scene. At the same time, we obtained and executed multiple search warrants yesterday for devices and locations associated with the sniper. FBI agents executed a search warrant at the sniper's residence yesterday, and there found a collection of notes. First, I want to point out that one of these notes or papers, the sniper explicitly states, "Yes, it was just me." That statement appears to be correct at this point in the investigation. Notably, these loose notes included a game plan of the attack and target areas at the facility. He called the ICE employees people showing up to collect a dirty paycheck. He wrote that he intended to maximize lethality against ICE personnel and to maximize property damage at the facility. He hoped to minimize any collateral damage or injury to the detainees and any other innocent people. It seems that he did not intend to kill the detainees or harm them. It's clear from these notes that he was targeting ICE agents and ICE personnel. The tragic irony for his evil plot here is that it was a detainee who was killed and 2 other detainees that were injured when he fired into the Sallyport. He also hoped his actions would give ICE agents real terror of being gunned down, and he did this to induce constant stress in their lives. He hoped his actions would terrorize ICE employees and interfere with their work, which he called human trafficking. And this, what he did, is the very definition of terrorism. Again, his notes reveal, yes, it was just me and my brain. And he said, good luck with the digital footprint. And of course, we take this to mean that he deleted evidence from his devices. His words were definitively anti-ICE. That said, we did not find evidence of membership in any specific group or entity, nor did he mention any specific government agency other than ICE. Among his papers, though, was a handwritten note in which, in crude words, he expressed his hatred for the federal government. Finally, I want to address the heroism of our federal agents yesterday. While under fire, ICE agents and ATF agents who were also present in the facility's Sallyport area worked together to remove detainees from the vans and get them to safety while the bullets were flying. These agents were heroic, clearly willing to lay down their lives to save the lives of the detainees in their custody. And that's an extremely important point to make at this point in time. I want to express my deepest appreciation for the bravery of these law enforcement officers yesterday and every single day that they go. I'll now turn it over to FBI Special Agent in charge of the Dallas Field Office, Joe Rothrock. Thank you.
Good afternoon. First, I'd like to start by thanking our acting United States Attorney, Nancy Larson, and her office for their support during this investigation. My name is Joe Rothrock, and I'm the Special Agent in charge of the FBI's Dallas Field Office. Yesterday morning, Joshua Yan carried out a targeted, ambush-style attack on law enforcement. Today, I will provide you with some updates on what we've learned through our investigation to date.
Why did he do
Yan's
it?
own words in his handwritten notes. Yan specifically intended to kill ICE agents. He fired at transport vehicles carrying ICE personnel, federal agents, and detainees. He also fired multiple shots into the windows of the office building where numerous ICE employees do their jobs every day. We now know that Yan engaged in significant high degree of pre-attack planning. He searched for information about the office building and how to track ICE agents' locations. Yan also acknowledged the potential for other casualties. He knew with a high likelihood ICE detainees would be transported that morning in the exact location where he was facing from his perch on a nearby rooftop. Yan's attack did in fact result in the tragic death of one detainee and the injury to two other detainees. We have been able to confirm that Yan legally obtained an 8mm bolt-action rifle he used in the shooting in August of this year. Based on our investigation to date, we believe Yan acted alone, but I'll stress our investigation continues. This attack yet again underscores the dangers that law enforcement face daily. We continue to see an increased threats against law enforcement. This is the second attack in recent months on ICE facilities here in North Texas. I do want to take this opportunity to thank our law enforcement partners, some of whom are here with us today. When Yan began firing, agents from both ICE and the ATF put themselves in the line of fire to move individuals off the transportation vehicles in an attempt to protect and rescue those that were injured. I want to thank them for their bravery. The Dallas Police Department and the Dallas County Sheriff's Office also quickly responded to the scene without any hesitation and ran towards danger. Ultimately, they located the shooter, who was deceased by an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. I want to thank them for their prompt response and dedication to protecting and serving their communities. I also want to thank our partners that have assisted in this investigation. The Fairview Police Department, as well as our partners in Oklahoma, to include Bryant County Sheriff's Department, Durant Police Department, and Choctaw Nation Light Horse Police, as well as our personnel from San Antonio and Oklahoma City within the FBI that assisted. The FBI has dedicated its entire breadth of resources to ensure this investigation is completed thoroughly. The FBI stands with our law enforcement partners, and today we express that the attacks against law enforcement officers will not be tolerated. While we believe Yan acted alone, we are still asking that anyone with information about Yan or his activities report that to the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI or at www.fbi.gov/Dallas ERO shooting. And with that, I will turn it over to Director Charles.
Good afternoon. My name is Marcos Charles. I am the ICE Executive Associate Director for Enforcement and Removal Operations. The attack on ICE's Dallas field office yesterday was tragic. And while our hearts and prayers are with the family of the detainees who were shot, the evidence is clear that this was intended as an assault on ICE personnel who come to work every day to do their job. Violent rhetoric has led to over 1,000% increase in assaults on ICE officers, and it has to stop. In contrast to those who would demonize our men and women, yesterday our brave officers ran back into danger along with ATF, our partners, to save the detainees while shots were still being fired. Those ICE officers just showed the world who they really are. Law enforcement officers who want the best for our country. That's ICE. Integrity, courage, excellence. They were willing to put their lives on the line to pull detainees out of the transport van to get them to safety. They are heroes, and I hope the media has the integrity to shine a light on this story. Enough is enough with the harmful lies and violent rhetoric. It has to stop. The shooter used the ICE tracking apps. Anyone who creates or distributes these apps that is designed to spot, track, and locate ICE officers are well aware of the dangers that they are exposing to law enforcement. It's a casting call to invite bad actors to attack law enforcement officers. It's no different than giving a hitman the location of their intended target, and this is exactly what we saw happen in Dallas yesterday. The media has been amplifying these apps even as we warned them it would only lead to more attacks on law enforcement. We truly wish we didn't have to say, "I told you so," but here we are. ICE continues to prioritize the safety and security of our personnel, detained aliens, and facilities. We will do everything possible to increase security to counter the increased wave of these lethal attacks. Again, we call on those who foment violence and vilify our law enforcement officers to cease the dangerous rhetoric. We also call on law-abiding Americans everywhere to report any suspicious activity. The individual that was out there yesterday shooting at our agents and our officers was trying to take the lives of law enforcement people doing their job. Instead, he killed a detainee and shot 2 others. That is something that's unacceptable. The rhetoric that's out there on social media, the rhetoric that is being said by some community leaders in other states needs to stop. There's been an increase in violence against ICE agents, not only in Texas and Dallas, but across the country in violent protests. Again, I ask everybody to just stop. Thank you.
So we're going to open it up to questions now. So if you have a question, we'll direct it.
Okay, now they're about to ask questions.
Sean Murphy with the Associated Press. Can you tell an estimate of how many shots were fired and how he was able to get those off so quickly with a bolt action play?
Yeah, so I'll answer that at this point. Again, I'll just remind you, this is an ongoing investigation. The ICE facility, the ICE office, really, it is a business office. This is where business is done on a daily basis by our partners at ICE. That is still an active crime scene. We still have personnel out there. As I mentioned earlier in my remarks, we brought in resources from San Antonio, Oklahoma City, obviously our own FBI resources here in Dallas, as well as folks from our lab, because we are going to do a thorough and exhaustive investigation and make sure that we have a full accounting of all the evidence that's at that scene. Again, those efforts are ongoing at this time. I'm going to go here real quick.
Thank you. Can you talk to us more about the detainees in the van? Were they transported to Alvarado, Texas, and what happened to them?
So you're referring to detainees that were not injured?
Correct. If you could give us an update on the ones that aren't injured, identities, nationalities.
So I won't be providing any updates at this time on the identities of the detainees that were injured. ICE has a process from notifications to consulate and to next of kin. That process is ongoing, and so we'll defer to our ICE counterparts at some point to determine when it's the right time to release that information. The other detainees remain safe. They are victims as well of this violent crime, and they are people that we are actively interviewing as part of our investigation. Right here to the front.
Kyle Dallas Morning News. Ms. Larson had referenced anti-government, anti-federal government statements that Mr. Yan had made. Is there any more information y'all can release about what exactly was in those writings?
clearest motivation for this attack are his own words. In his handwritten notes, he says, "I want to cause terror." He doesn't want to just impact the ICE agents and the law enforcement agents that were carrying out that mission yesterday. He wants to impact ICE agents and law enforcement across the country. Again, his words, cause terror for those employees across the country.
Okay, so they're gonna hit him with terrorism
How
charge.
long the suspect had been planning this attack?
Well, this is, again, as I referenced in my remarks, this is significant pre-planning months in advance. We know that he obtained the firearm in August. We also know that he was looking at a number of DHS facilities and he had downloaded that information. He was looking at the apps, as my counterpart mentioned, to see where ICE agents would be. So this was not something that just occurred yesterday. It came to a conclusion yesterday, but this is something months in the making.
Priscilla Thompson with NBC Network News. From what we have heard, this person was not particularly political. Is there anything that you all have found in terms of an inciting incident that led him to commit this attack?
Unfortunately, the challenge with these mass casualty incidents is people can be motivated to violence by any number of grievances. In this case, the clearest indication of motivation are his own words. He wanted to cause terror. He wanted to harm ICE personnel. Ma'am.
The deceased shooter, did he have a relation with somebody who had been detained by ICE or mistreated by ICE for him to act this way?
Again, the clearest motivations at this point are the harm he wanted to cause to ICE. We're not aware of any specific relationships he had with anybody in detention. But again, our investigation's ongoing. We're going to unturn every stone here. And so that continues. Sir.
Omar V. Franco with CBS News. Secretary Noem has asked for increased security at ICE facilities across the country. Can you say what is going to be done to harden these facilities to protect agents and detainees?
So I cannot say what will be done by our partners at DHS to harden their facilities. What I can say, and I can draw upon just our recent experiences here in North Texas, is we've seen attacks now, 2 ambush-style attacks, where law enforcement was the target of individuals who did significant pre-planning and coordination to set up law enforcement, again, in an ambush-style attack.
But anything that they physically are going to do for these facilities, since they're still operating, to protect them? There's still no barrier up or anything like that at this facility.
I would need to refer to my partners from ICE from that.
Yeah, so currently we're looking at hardening some of our facilities. Also, I don't want to give away any operational security as to how we're going to be doing that.
But
there are plans to harden some of our facilities. Back there.
Robbie Owens, CBS News, Texas. Were the Young family immigrants?
Mr. Yan was not an immigrant. He was a United States citizen. He was here legally. I won't be going into the details on anybody other than Mr. Yan at this time. Ma'am.
Can you talk a little bit about the ICE agents, or the agents that were there at the location that helped him when shots were beginning to fire? Can you give us more perspective on what the situation was with the detainees that were in the vans? Were they handcuffed? Were they shackled? Why weren't they able to get out of the vehicle by themselves?
Again, these were individuals that were detained by law enforcement. There were multiple transport vehicles at the facility at that time. Again, what I would stress at this point is, under gunfire, multiple federal agents ran into that fire to remove these individuals and to attempt to render life-saving aid under the most dire circumstances.
Just for clarity, they were restrained.
They were being, the individuals in the vans were being strained. It's a proper procedure for transport. The individuals that are brave men and women that went out there to go help and rescue were the ones that were injured and could not leave the van on their own.
And we know that that's common, because we've seen, obviously, transports before. So we just wanted clarity to understand why they weren't able to leave on their own.
The other individuals that were in the van were able to leave on their own. It was the ones that were injured were unable to exit the vehicle. Sir.
Have you guys gotten any cooperation from the suspect's family and this idea that the anti-government, federal government attitude was there? Have any family members expressed any signs that we knew this was happening, or was this just all Texas?
Back to you, sir.
As is common in these investigations of mass casualty incidents, we are going to interview everybody we can identify that might have information about the motivations or who might have information about the pre-planning or who may have assisted in this attack. I won't be outlining every interview we conducted today, but we will be doing a thorough investigation. And again, one of the reasons we ask for additional information for the public is if there are those out there that had contact with Jan, we would like to hear from them, and we would like to gain an understanding of what their relationship was. I won't be going into details about other aspects of the investigation.
Luke Larry, WFA. Can you expand on why you believe that he acted alone here? And can you go into it all? Any activity he may have had in online forums or communities that may have influenced his action?
So again, the totality of our investigation includes interviews, canvassing areas, collecting surveillance video. We're certainly looking at his digital footprint online as well as digital devices. I'm not going to outline the details from every one of those. Again, his own words called out that he committed this act alone, and all the evidence we have to date would indicate that that's accurate.
Alex with Fox 4 News. You mentioned that the ICE facility, I believe, is still an active crime scene. Can you talk about what will happen in the coming days with that facility? Are there detainees being held there? Have they all been taken away? Is it operational as an office?
It is going to remain an active crime scene for some time. Again, we will be there as long as it takes to make sure that we've captured every piece of physical evidence.
I'm a review of the Dallas Observer. You mentioned the one bullet that was found with kind of ideological writing on it. Have any of the bullets found around the scene had any writing on them, or is it just the one?
Again, active crime scene. We're still collecting physical evidence.
Jim Schulter with ABC News. Around the crime scene, when this car was actually being towed, there was some writings on that vehicle. Can you give us a sense about what those were and how they play into your investigation?
So the vehicle was searched as part of our investigation. I don't have additional details to share with you now about any writings, but certainly if we have updates, we'll provide those in the future. Ma'am.
Ashley Killer with CNN. Y'all mentioned that he used a ladder to position himself. Did he use the ladder to get on top of the roof, or is that where he...
Yeah, that's...
where his body was found?
He was found on top of a neighboring roof. We believe he used the ladder to access that roof. Sir.
David with Fox News Channel. Was suicide part of this all along, or was he reported by law enforcement?
His handwritten notes indicate that he did not expect to survive this event. Sir.
Kevin Reese, WFAA. A personal question, if you would dare. Can you explain to people in this climate what it's like to be an ICE agent right now?
As I had said, the ICE officers that are out there right now, you've seen them in multiple times on the news. They're out there doing their job with courage and honor. Yes, there is a heightened sense of security for everybody, not only at work, but for their families, for their loved ones, mainly because of the doxing that's going on and the violent rhetoric that people have been perpetrating.
Mr. Charles, while you're up there, can I just follow up to that question and ask, of the agents that did respond on that day, or yesterday morning, can you tell us what they were wearing at the time? Because I know sometimes ICE agents do and don't have bulletproof gear on. Can you give us an idea of how they responded?
Yeah,
What they wearing? So they're wearing their normal gear. And it was not only ICE agents; it was ATF agents also that went out there and heroically came out and under fire went to rescue those individuals.
Have you spoken to them?
I have spoken to one of them so far, but I haven't spoken to others. They're doing okay.
All right, we have one more question about the immigration status for those individuals who were injured. What's their immigration status going to, is it going to change? Maybe perhaps even those who were in the van, ACU.
The individuals that were in the van will be going through due process, and they'll go through the whole immigration proceeding. So I'm not going to go into what their status is currently.
And those who were injured?
Same thing.
All right, folks, we have time for one more question.
Okay, we don't understand.
That one's for you.
So again, I'm not going to detail every aspect of the case. We did search his residence, and that is where we found the handwritten notes. And that's all the time we have for questions today. When we have more updates, we'll come back.
Okay, Fallon, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. With that being said, Good night. Like, share,
Live press conference
subscribe.
out of
See
Dallas
y'all
there. We're
later.
learning more
Peace.
details about that shooter who was up on the rooftop shooting into that ICE detention